Voices across the centuries, across religious traditions, tell us we are not as separate as we appear. They come to us from the deserts of Persia, from the monasteries of medieval Italy, from the meditation halls of India. They tell us over and over again, surrender is not weakness, but homecoming. The love we seek is not distant, not earned, not reserved for the worthy, but already alive within us, waiting to be remembered. This morning, we turn toward those voices of the mystics. Our reading this morning is from the psychiatrist and contemplative Gerald May, an excerpt from his book Will and Spirit on the difference between willingness and willfulness. There are times each day when we are forced to wake up to the fact of being alive, times when conscious choices must be made about what to do or how to be. At these points of awareness, we are compelled to engage life, however briefly or reluctantly. And at these points, our fundamental attitude towards the deepest levels of being can either be willful or willing. Willingness implies a surrendering of one's self-separateness, an entering into, an immersion in the deepest processes of life itself. It is a realization that one already is a part of some ultimate cosmic process, and it is a commitment to participation in that process. In contrast, willfulness is the setting of oneself apart from the fundamental essence of life in an attempt to master, direct, control, or otherwise manipulate existence. More simply, willingness is saying yes to the mystery of being alive in each moment. Willfulness is saying no, or perhaps more commonly, yes, but. One begins to realize that it is not possible to belong to the universe, to participate in its vital flow, if one is either being controlled by or trying to control it, he adds later. There is no hope of realizing unity in an atmosphere of either submission or mastery. Whenever one mires down in a willful attempt to master life, the strongest feeling encountered is loneliness. It is impossible to be truly intimately close to anything or anyone when one is either controlling or being controlled. Here ends the reading. So beautiful. Thank you. Dreaming of a world where love will bless the earth and peace its paths adorn. This is love at the center, and this is what the mystics tell us across centuries and across so many traditions. My first encounter with such a teacher was in India when I was 18. He was a teacher of Vedanta named Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Now, Vedanta is one of the oldest schools of philosophy within Hinduism. The word means the end of the Vedas and represents the culmination of thousands of years of spiritual inquiry into the nature of reality and the self. Vedanta holds that a creator made the world from itself. So the Lord is both the intelligence and the material of creation. Swami Dayananda teaches this. One such pamphlet he gave me was titled, "Who Am I?" In it, he writes, quote, "If the Lord is both the material and the efficient cause, where is the Lord? The Lord is space. The Lord is time. The Lord is the tree, the foliage, the flowers, and the bees thereupon. The Lord is the child. The Lord is this hand. The Lord is the consciousness behind them all, behind the thought, behind the creation, space, time, stars, galaxies. The Lord is everything, and therefore, where is God? Where is he not?" End quote. So this position in Hinduism is called Advaita, non-duality, literally not two. And one of its most beloved teaching images is reflected in my sermon title this morning, "The Wave and the Ocean." If we are each like waves arising from an infinite sea, the wave appears separate, to us at least. It has a shape, a name, a brief life, but its essential nature is water. Liberation in this teaching is not becoming something new. It is remembering what you already are, the wave remembering the ocean. You can hear resonance of this same vision in the opening hymn we sang this morning, "Come Down, O Love Divine." It's a little different flavor. It was originally a poem by Bianco da Siena, a 14th century Italian mystic, a wool worker from Tuscany who belonged to a lay order devoted to prayer and care of the sick. The final verse says, "And so the glory strong for which the soul will long shall far outpass the power of human telling, for none can guess its grace till we become the place wherein the Holy Spirit makes a dwelling." Love creates a place within us. Using the metaphor of the sermon title, the idea here is that we, the wave, connect with and discover the ocean inside our own hearts. In the Christian mystical heritage, this is to say, we find also the idea that the dwelling of the divine, the dwelling of love is within us, is within our hearts. So with this in mind, I want to turn towards our Muslim neighbors who are currently observing the holy month of Ramadan, a month of fasting, prayer, and inward turning that began on February 18th. The word Islam itself means surrender to God, and Ramadan intensifies that practice through the daily discipline of going without food, from dawn to dusk, making space for the sacred within ordinary life. Now, Sufism is understood by many Muslims as the mystical heart of Islam. not a separate sect, but the interior of the faith, emphasizing direct experience of divine love and the intimate relationship between the human soul and God. And the Sufi tradition also holds up love in a way that is embodied and practical and personal, not unlike our own transcendentalist heritage, while also allowing for the mystery. You may be familiar with one of the most popular Sufi poets of all time, the 13th century mystic Jalaluddin Rumi, who we will hear from at the end of this sermon. But first, this morning, I want to introduce you to another Sufi who is less well known, Yunus Emre, a Turkish Sufi poet and actually a contemporary of Rumi's, who has been called the most important folk poet in the literature of Islam, a Francis of Assisi within Turkish civilization, according to his translator, Kabir Helminski. Where Rumi wrote elaborate Persian verse for an educated audience, Yunus was an illiterate peasant who composed in the spoken language of the common people, yet became so beloved that his poems spread across every level of Turkish society. There's a wonderful story about their meeting. Yunus had become acquainted with the 6 books of Rumi's masterpiece, the Mathnui, some 25,000 verses of mystical poetry. When asked what he thought of it, Yunus reportedly said, "It's a little long. I would have written it differently." "Oh, how so?" said Rumi. "I would have written, I came from eternity, clothed myself with skin and bones, and called myself Yunus." The whole ocean in a single drop, right? And more directly speaking to our metaphor, our central metaphor this morning, he writes, "I am a fatherless pearl unrecognized by the sea. I am the drop that contains the ocean. Its waves are amazing. It is beautiful to be a sea hidden within an infinite drop. To be a wave who remembers the ocean." Now, it's important, I think, in our Unitarian Universalist context to say that this experience of remembering the ocean need not be limited to those who hold a theistic worldview, as some of us do not, I am well aware. This kind of surrender into the larger self is exactly what Buddhism means by enlightenment, right? My own journey into the experience of oneness of life began in Buddhism. So I will share one story. My first taste of this was during a 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat. There was no fasting from dawn until dusk, as in Ramadan, but let me say substantial spiritual discipline was required. We woke at 4 or 4:30 every morning, I can't remember, and we're expected to be meditating almost all day until 9 or 9:30 at night. But sometime during the middle of the retreat, I had a breakthrough experience where this incredible love just started pouring through from my heart center. I had been very cranky in this retreat in my head. I was complaining quite a bit. They caught me trying to sleep extra, actually, at one point, and very politely said, "Sir, you're supposed to be meditating." So this was a surprise. All of a sudden, my thoughts were full of loving kindness towards other people, to those who care about me and those I care about is where it started. Emotionally, I was feeling love and deep gratitude for those in my life. But what really strikes me when I think back about this experience is that I had not been cultivating any of those qualities. So the meditation practice I was doing was literally a body scan. I was just scanning my body. There was a breath awareness practice. And yet, from that stillness and that concentration, this dwelling of love within me poured through. It was really incredible. And the rest, of course, is history. Here I am, minister. So I share this example, though, to illustrate that none of this happened within a theistic framework, right? And I hadn't even brought a concept of God into my practice at that point, nor really any sense of what existed beyond my limited self. Yet it felt like the door of my heart just burst open. And the love that was at once within me and connected to infinity beyond me was able to flow. Now, I also don't think one needs to have such dramatic experiences as this in a meditation retreat or a mystical experience of some sort to recognize this truth. I think it can creep up in our hearts gradually. Love is love, and love is at the center, as we Unitarian Universalists say. We can find it walking in the woods, resting free in the grace of the world, watching the snow fall. Wherever you go, whatever you do, where your separateness dissolves, where the anxious ego quiets, and where you remember that you belong to something larger than yourself. That is all that is needed. And this is why I like the reading I chose for this morning. Why I wanted to hold up Gerald May's framework of the difference between willingness and willfulness. Willingness, willfulness. He gives us a language that works across all of these traditions. Willingness is to say yes to the mystery of being alive in each moment. Yes to being a part of all life and supporting life from that place. It's centered in love. Willfulness, on the other hand, is the attempt to set ourselves apart, to master, control, manipulate, destroy. There's a lot of that going on right now. We're living in a time of extraordinary willfulness. I think there are personal levels to this, and of course there are political levels in our country and many other countries around the world, with the power of the state being used to dominate, to label people as enemies, and to silence dissent. So let us remember all of this. And as Gerald May writes, that whenever one mires down in a willful attempt to master life, the strongest feeling encountered is loneliness. Isn't that the emotional texture of authoritarianism? It breeds isolation and disconnection and fear. I think on both the giving and the receiving end of the controlling. It wants us to forget that we belong to each other. It wants the wave to forget the ocean. So here are three lessons I think we can take away from this, whether we come to it as theists or humanists, atheists, Buddhists, something else. First, surrender, when we think about the faith of Islam in particular right now, I think, surrender is not submission. The Sufis and the mystics are not telling us to be passive. They're telling us to let go of the illusion that we're separate. And from that recognition, let us act with fierce love. The wave that remembers the ocean does not stop being a wave. It moves with the full power of the sea behind it. This is what we saw in Minneapolis in January, when tens of thousands of people filled the streets in below zero weather, including hundreds of Unitarian Universalists, not because they were submitting to the situation, but because they remembered who they were, that they belonged together. Second, tend to your inner life. Join a meditation group. Spend time in nature. Pray or do whatever your practice is to connect in a deep way with life, singing together. Our practices are not luxuries or escapism. They are how we stay connected to the source of love and energy, the strength we need in these challenging times, which does not come from willfulness. It comes from willingness and from the practices that reconnect us to what is already within us and around us. And third, remember that we belong to one another. The antidote to the loneliness and fear of authoritarianism is community. It is what we do here. It is the deeper truth that so many mystics and so many traditions point towards. You are not alone. You never were. The wave was always the ocean. So, as the great Sufi poet Rumi writes, listen, O drop. Give yourself up without regret, and in exchange gain the ocean. Listen, O drop. Bestow upon yourself this honor, and in the arms of the sea be secure. Who indeed should be so fortunate? An ocean wooing a drop. In God's name, sell and buy at once. Give a drop and take this sea full of pearls. May we have the willingness to remember we are part of the ocean, however we understand that. And may that remembering give us the love and energy we need in this moment. As you go from this place, may you carry with you the mystic's simplest truth, that you are not separate from the love that made you. You are the wave and you are the ocean. You are the drop and you contain the sea. Go not to submit to another, not to master another, but in willingness and strength with the knowledge that you belong to each other and to this world. Go in love, and may the people say,